Welcome to the Alcohol Free Life podcast, brought to you by thesoberclub.com. I'm Genuinely Grace. This is for you if you've quit the booze or you'd like to, or maybe you're just sober curious. I'll bring you tips and motivation without any judgment, and there'll be inspiration from experts, quit-lit authors, and sober heroes. Hey, and welcome to the podcast. I hope you're well. And it's been a very exciting week for me with my memoir, my book. Actually got the physical copies. I got a couple of copies. I didn't realise I was going to get them this early. So it was quite a thing. Just as I was sort of feeling really panicky about the whole thing and wondering if it was not too late to pull the plug, the actual books arrived. So it's a real thing when you kind of hold your book in your hand. It really is. So anyways, just a reminder that it doesn't come out till October, but I really hope some of you will come and see me on some of the gigs. It would just be great to meet some podcast listeners, some of the dates around the UK. So you can find all that info at genuinelygrace.com, or if you go to thesoberclub.com and click on events, there's a list of the dates. The book is From Wham to Woo, A Life on the Mic. And I really hope you'll enjoy it. There's some fun stuff in there and some great pictures. Found some amazing old snaps of, 80s and 90s pop stars. Never before seen pictures. So yeah, we're going to have some fun on that tour, I hope, in October and November. Got some really good dates in place. Bookshops, festivals. So if you are coming along, then dig out some pictures from your attic and bring them with you. We'll have a competition to see who really did have the biggest hair. So anyways, this week on the podcast, we're going back to that tricky topic that we've looked at before. But we're going to go back to the topic of relationships and sex, because it's such a thing in sobriety. It's a massive topic, but so much changes when you stop drinking or when a partner stops drinking. And we really are kind of having to relearn who we are. And my goodness, it's a minefield. It really is. And as a coach, as someone who works as a sober coach, I have to kind of deal with it all the time with clients. It comes up constantly. And I remember, for myself, how difficult everything felt in the early weeks. And we're not just talking about romantic relationships, but friendships, and everything shifts. So anyways, I invited Anna Kingsley, who is a relationships expert and psychosexual therapist. So she knows her stuff, and it's an interesting interview. I hope you'll enjoy it. Anna also said, very happy to come back another time. So if you listen to this interview and you've got very specific questions, just pop them over to me on an email, and we'll get her to come back on the show. Before we do that, I want to tell you about a fantastic range of alcohol-free drinks. So Mocktails we've teamed up with Mocktails this week on the podcast, and they're the alcohol-free, ready-to-drink cocktails brand. What's really unique about this brand, they were the world's first non-alcoholic drink to launch in the nitro-charged, the 200ml nitro-charged slim cans. So you've got that, you don't want that chunky big Coca-Cola type can. You've got those nice slim cans. So really convenient way to enjoy mocktails on the go, whatever it is you're doing. And they started up in 2018. And the founders were just kind of thinking, we need a premium alcohol-free drink in the market that will really sit alongside classic cocktails in terms of flavour and how they're presented and the whole thing. And they had just a lot of expertise between them, these founders. So with the intense and obsessive care of master perfumers, that's what they said, the mocktail mixologists have spent years just properly looking at, okay, how are we going to source the right botanicals? How are we going to combine them in precisely the right quantities so we get the most complex and delicious and tantalising balance of flavours? And that's what they've done. They are really unique. Of course, you don't have to have them on the go in your can. You can have them at home. You can pop the liquid into a shaker with some ice, and then shake it up for 10 seconds, and then serve it in a beautiful glass, and garnish it, pimp it a little bit, and enjoy. And they've got the 4 flavours. So they've got the Karma Sucra Mockapolitan, fantastic names, the Vida Loca Mockarita, the Seville Red Sansgria, and the Scottish Lemonade Mocskow Mule. Moscow Mule, I got that right in the end. So they're fantastic, great flavours. They look really funky. They're 100% natural, sustainable, ethically sourced. They're also vegan and gluten-free, because that can be a real issue for some people who are having alcohol-free drinks. They want to have something alcohol-free, and then they realise, oh, hold on a minute, I need something gluten-free, and they're low in sugar and calories. So it's a really fantastic brand, and they've also created a partnership with Alcohol Change UK. So they're now the official cocktails of Dry January. So that's pretty cool as well. So anyway, check them out. I'll put all of this info in the show notes, drinkmocktails.com. And actually, if you go over to myandperfectlynatural.com site, or I'll put the link again in the show notes, we've got a competition to win some. So really appreciate this fantastic brand being part of the podcast. So I'm really delighted to look at this topic again, the whole topic of relationships and sex and navigating relationships when you're quitting the booze or when someone else is. And oh my goodness, it's such a big topic, and I don't know that it's one that we ever completely get to the bottom of, but I'm really thrilled that my guest is Anna Kingsley, who is a queen of all of this stuff, absolute queen in relationship psychotherapy. And she studied to be a psychotherapist, a psychosexual therapist. And I know you've got a real heart for all of this, haven't you, Anna? So I really appreciate you joining us.
Oh, thank you. I don't know that I've ever been described as a queen. So.
Well, you can be queen of this.
Wonderful. So,
Anna, just before we get into all of this topic, just tell us a little bit about your background, because I think you said to me in an email that did you tell me, forgive me if I've got this wrong, did you say that you were married to someone who had issues with alcohol?
Yes. Yeah. So let's go back a bit. I am a psychotherapist. I work with couples, so they come to see me when they've got relationship difficulties. And I'm also a psychosexual therapist, so people come and talk to me when they have sexual difficulties. And I'm also an addiction therapist. So I train to be to work with people who have difficulties with substance abuse, because some of my clients came to me with relationship problems off the back of getting into sobriety. So they'd got to grips with their cocaine addiction or their alcohol addiction, but their relationships were in tatters, right? Not just with their partners, but also with their families and friends. Yeah. But yes, on a personal note, my husband is in recovery. He is an alcoholic. He's been sober now for a couple of years. So I have a professional experience and a lived experience of what alcohol can do to relationships and the damage it can do from a relationship point of view and from a sexual point of view. Because I look back and think, well, I'm not sure in the last year of my husband's drinking we ever had great sex. It was pretty chaotic for practical reasons and then also for emotional ones.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think one of the things that I often find myself saying is that because many of us, those of us who've been drinking too much in the past, we probably started drinking when we were quite young, maybe late teens or early 20s or whatever. So for some people, they've never had sex sober. I mean, never, right?
Yes.
And I mean, what a thing. And then you get sober and you're dealing with so much. It's almost like you're a new person and you've got to reinvent yourself and put a new identity on, and you don't know who the hell you are, and everything feels raw. And then there's this terrifying thing called sex on top of it. And oh God, I mean, it's a real thing. And what's your tip for navigating that?
Oh goodness, I don't know that there is just one. But I think you're absolutely spot on because dating, certainly in the UK, happens in pubs and bars, doesn't it? We
Yeah.
don't tend, well, certainly maybe now, maybe we go for coffees, but generally, certainly in my day, it was all around drinking. So drinking is, you're absolutely right that it gets tied up in being sexual. And we think, oh, well, let's just have a drink, a bit of Dutch courage or, beer goggles. Those genuinely do happen. We drink too much and we end up finding all sorts of people attractive that when we were sober, we wouldn't look twice at. And it just does become quite problematic. So yes, in very small moderation, the science seems to suggest that some level of alcohol can help people sexually, can give you a bit of confidence. It can take the edge off it if you're sexually anxious. It can help with the level of sexual pain. But really, no, alcohol and sex don't go well together at all. It gets us into really messy situations. And the most complicated thing about it is that when we sober up, some of the physiological problems that alcohol might have caused, those tend to go away quite quickly. But as you hinted at, Janie, the psychological stuff kicks in. So the sexual problems remain. They don't just vanish just because we've stopped drinking.
Yeah.
They were always there. We just weren't dealing with them because we were, busy drinking.
Yeah.
And had that to deal with.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's hugely complex and really problematic.
Yeah, it is. And you touch on dating there. So another thing that comes up a lot is when someone, if they are on the market, as it were, again, I mean, I'm so grateful that I'm not in that position, but I know it must be very difficult when someone does want to date. Then, the question that comes up all the time is, should I make it clear from the off that I don't drink? So if you're on a dating app or even if you've arranged to meet someone, what's your view? Should someone say straight off, okay, by the way, I don't drink? I mean, there is a school of thought that says, may as well get it out the way, not waste time. Or should we, I mean, in an ideal world, not drinking would be so normal that you wouldn't have to make a thing of it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I look back, I met my husband online, and back in those days, the only option to scan, to rule people out was whether or not he smoked. So I said, no, I don't want to date any smokers.
Right.
And when we did get together, he wasn't a smoker. Turns out he had been a smoker, 3 years previously, and lo and behold, started smoking again. So I think that is the problem. I think we do need to be clear from the get-go. What do we want and what do we not want to do? And that would be true from drinking as true for anything about getting together in a relationship. Why would you want to hold back a part of yourself if you're actually trying to meet people with a view to actually properly connecting?
Yeah.
So yes, please. My advice would be, yes, be honest from the get-go, because it's only going to get you into sticky situations. And there really isn't actually anything to be ashamed of.
Absolutely.
You don't have to say why. You just have to say, no, I don't drink. And lots of the apps now allow you to, rule out anybody who does.
Well,
So
actually, I
it
think
becomes
there is
lot
a
easier.
sober dating app now, isn't there? I think there is.
Yes.
I think there is at least one. So that's
Yeah.
a good sign. What about then probably the biggest group of people that I sort of find myself encountering are people who are in the early stages of stopping drinking. They're doing fantastically well, but their partner is still back, where they were, as it were. It's very difficult, isn't it? Because we have to do this for ourselves. We can't do it for anyone else. We have to do it for ourselves. But, certainly for women, they've perhaps been people pleasers for years. And there is this sense, I mean, actually a client said to me literally yesterday, I'm worried that my husband will think that I'm no fun anymore if I'm not drinking with him. I mean, it's very sad, really, because I mean, how ridiculous is it that what you put in your mouth whether it's
Determines who
different
you
to
are.
somebody else's mouth.
Yeah.
What the hell difference does it make? You know, if you're at a barbecue and some people are eating meat burgers and some are eating vegan, well, what
Yeah.
difference does it make? It's either a good barbecue or it isn't, right? It's either a
Yeah.
fun time or it isn't. So we know it's crazy, but when you're in the throes of that, it does feel. It feels like a really big one because the
Yeah.
identities are kind of no longer matching.
I know, but that's if I'd been speaking to the person, I'd say, well, that's your husband's problem. That's a him
Yes.
problem. Absolutely. And actually, lots of partners have been struggling alongside the alcoholic for
Yeah.
years and getting very frustrated, realizing that there's nothing they can do to influence whether or not their partner will have a drink or not have a drink. So actually, it's quite helpful for the it's in my view, it's essential that the partner's on board with the attempts to sober up. And it's vital actually that you say, look, please don't drink in the house. I don't want you to drink in the house. If you need to go and have a drink, go and have a drink somewhere else, but I don't want alcohol in the house. I think that's entirely reasonable. And actually most partners, if they are loving and supportive, will go along with that because they'll probably be so desperate to help their spouse or their partner
Yeah.
that they'll do it. And
Yeah.
so
It's
it's
true.
important to ask for help. Lots of the people I see get into sticky situations with alcohol or other substances because they don't ask for help. So and they're so ashamed, they think they can fix it by themselves. So it's
Yeah.
important to ask for help. It's important to tell your friends, look, this is what I'm doing. I'm not going to be able to meet you in the pub at the moment. Maybe one day I'll be able to get to the pub and happily have, a lime and soda. But for now, you're going to have to rule me out of pub meetups and I'll have to, but come round to my house and,
Yeah. Yeah. It's coming back to the right level of communication, I suppose, isn't it? Being able to be open about it.
Yeah.
The other thing that comes up quite a lot, and I know there'll be people listening to this who identify with this, is that sometimes when you quit alcohol after having been drinking forever and a day, and you actually start to, get into that different life where you're literally living your best life without alcohol, and with so many people in the sober club, we've seen them, they change, they become brave, they become creative, they want a whole new life, really. They want to live somewhere different, they want to go and do a course that they've never done before, they want to start a charity, they want to write a book, and on and on and on, and you can literally see people evolve and grow, and it's really empowering. However, in some cases their partner is stuck.
Yes.
And that is a tricky one. It's so tricky, isn't it? When you are evolving and growing and your partner isn't.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really interesting because when I work with couples, and most of my work is with couples, the partner who isn't a drinker will have addiction somewhere in their background. So it will be an issue for them somewhere that they haven't quite dealt with. They'll have a sibling or a mother or a father that with an addictive problem that they haven't dealt with, and suddenly now their partner is embracing sobriety, dealing with their stuff. Maybe they're in the fellowship and they're going through the 12 steps, or they're in therapy and they're finally battling through their demons. And it's really actually quite tricky for both partners, not just the person who's finally quit and is open to all that their sober world has to offer, but also the partner stuck at home thinking, well, actually, there was something I was getting from this situation, from the way the relationship was working. It was allowing me not to deal with my stuff either. And suddenly now my partner's off dealing with their stuff. And now I feel very exposed and very vulnerable. Because it's always a shared thing in a couple, even when it looks like it really isn't, generally somewhere underneath it all. It's a shared problem.
I guess there are times when a massive life change like that actually does mean the relationship has to end.
Yep.
I guess that comes up in your work, right?
It does. And at some point, people will think, actually, my sobriety is more important. And this is not a safe relationship for me. And therefore, they choose to leave. And that's absolutely the right thing to do. But it can be very painful because they'll have got themselves quite enmeshed in that relationship, probably for a lot longer than they would have liked. So to leave it becomes practically and emotionally quite difficult, even
Yeah.
though logically they know it's the right thing to do. There's a lot of grieving to do when you leave behind a relationship, even if it's not a healthy one.
What do you mean by the word grieving in that
Well,
setting?
there's loss, right? There's the loss of hope. Nobody ever goes into a relationship thinking it's going to be a disaster or wanting it to be a disaster, but there will be an end. They will no longer be a couple. There will no longer be the hope of things improving. There will no longer be the shared memories. So there is always a bit of grieving when something ends, even when it ends for the right reasons.
Yeah. So back on the sex.
Yes, back on the sex.
Back on the sex. How can people navigate this then in the when they're sort of newly sober? Do you think does it again just come back to communication and being able to kind of set our boundaries? And I mean, I suppose one of the problems is when we're drinking, and we're that kind of party girl, party guy, all caution to the wind, you may not even know where you're going to wake up the next day. That's a very different reality to when you're suddenly faced with, literally the being stone cold sober, as the expression goes. Although I hate that phrase. But, how do we navigate it? Perhaps we're even with a long-term partner, but nevertheless it's different. So what's your tip? What's the key?
Well, I think that I think we are all responsible for our own sexual pleasure. And it's something that we have to learn about in ourselves. And when we are drinking, we become removed from ourselves. We become slightly distant. So when we sober up, our job is to re-engage with ourselves. Not the first person to re-engage with is ourselves, not our partners. So it's back to very simple stuff around how comfortable am I in my body? How is my body changed because of my drinking or changing because of my sobriety? How do I feel naked, right? Now I am sober and I'm looking at myself in the mirror. Do I like what I see? What about what I see do I like? What's the good stuff? Now that I'm not drinking, what do I like to actually taste? What do I like the taste of? What do I like the feel of? What do I like the smell of? Can I engage in my senses now that alcohol's not getting in the way of everything? So it's about really getting back in touch with yourself. Very simply, I'm not talking about masturbation at this point. I'm simply talking about how connected am I to my body? Do I feel, can I walk around naked? Am I one of these people that sort of hides behind the bedroom door so that nobody gets to see me? Can I walk out of the bathroom and not worry if someone's going to see? Do I go to bed dressed in, full length flannel pajamas and woolly socks? How comfortable am I in my own skin? So it's about getting in touch with yourself, and then it's about how comfortable am I engaging with my partner on a non-sexual level, right? Can I accept a hug? Can I accept a cuddle on the sofa? How comfortable am I in how easy is it for me to do sort of not platonic touching? If I were to walk past my partner and they were, I don't know, making a cup of tea, would I touch them on the back as I walk past them? Or if my husband or my wife touched me on the shoulders as I was sitting down, would I flinch or would I be fine? So it's really starting at the very basics. And if you jump quickly to think, well, now I'm free to have all the sex in the world because suddenly, I don't suffer from drinker's droop anymore and my desires come back, you could be, heading for a crash. Drinking gets in the way of how we feel about ourselves, how we feel about the world, how we understand all sorts of things.
Yeah.
So it's really go back to basics. Do I like myself? Do I like the way I look? It's not about whether you're fat or thin, but it's about how comfortable you are in your own skin. What do I like? What do I like the taste of? What do I like to do with my partner? How do I like to be touched? When do I like to be touched? Am I a morning person? Am I an evening person?
Yeah, I think they're such good points, and of course you're absolutely right, because for many, certainly for many women, their self-esteem is very low, and that's one of the reasons that particularly when you're drinking, it's very hard to really have that sense of self-love and self-esteem. It's very difficult because you're not authentic with who you're meant to be, and it can take a little while for those kind of thoughts to kick in, as it were. So I think you're right. It's absolutely getting back in touch with yourself first. I suppose my question, I mean, the other thing that comes up, of course, is that often women are menopausal. And then, of course, that brings in a whole load of other stuff, like, I don't know how graphic we want to be, but, the menopause brings with it issues around sex and how sexual you feel. And, one thing that I think is so difficult is when you first stop drinking, for many people, there is a sense of kind of shame and guilt. You didn't necessarily feel it when you were drinking, but when you stop, you feel it. And often, that sense of, oh my God, what did all those years and what was I doing? And who did I hurt and upset and on and on. And then you kind of have to layer on top of that, oh God, and now I don't want to have sex either.
Well, maybe you do, maybe you don't. But the point is that when you start to sober up, you start taking better care of yourself.
Yeah.
And there are things that menopausal women can do to make their sex life a little better and a little more, alive. But for years, drinkers will have, neglected themselves.
Their self-care,
not have gone to the doctors. They would not have asked for help. They would have not done any of this. So it is about prioritizing yourself, prioritizing your health, and asking for help, because lo and behold, there are things that can be done.
Yeah.
And yes, it's about being brave and having honest communication with your partner, and no shame, because menopause does, change things, and that's okay.
Yeah.
That's just how it is, and women have to get used to it, and men have to get used to it.
Yeah.
No shame there.
If you could wave a magic wand, what would you like to have happen around sex and relationships? I mean, would you like to bring more understanding into schools? Would you like what would you like to have happen? Because it feels to me like, I don't know whether it's just that, I don't know, maybe it's very different for younger people, but it feels to me like we're not able to accept and communicate as well as we ought to be able to, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, certainly it would start when you're younger. But actually, if I had one magic wand, I would really encourage sex to become a part of the conversation around sobriety, because it really isn't. So many people in sobriety will have gone to rehab centres or spoken to therapists, and they will have got all sorts of helpful help around it, but they will not have been asked about their sex life. So if you go into a treatment centre, you are asked, and how has your alcohol or how has your substance abuse affected your work? How has it affected your family relationships is probably the closest that somebody might ask you. But nobody will ask you about sex. How did your drinking impact your sex life? As if that isn't a part of who we are, right? Sex has to be a part of our lives, and of our recovery, because we want recovery to be full. I'm not saying everybody then has to go out and be sexual, but we have to have that conversation with people, because it's important whether they choose to act on being sexual or not. We want to be able to talk about it. So it needs to be part of the conversation right from the start. The science is really complicated. So we need to start bringing in lived experience if we're all going to understand better how alcohol messes with our sex life, and how we can make it easy as possible to transition through sobriety into a sex life that we want, or at least into a sense of ourselves as sexual beings, because we shouldn't have that shut off. We should live a full life.
I think that's a really good point. That's a really good point. And definitely, helping us feel okay about communicating our needs without feeling as though we're just, being selfish.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things that we have to do, and that we hopefully can embrace once we stop drinking, is recognizing that self-care isn't selfish, it's essential, right?
Yes.
We have to be able to put ourselves first. We have to do that. It's the put your own oxygen mask on first, and all of that, all of those cliches. They're all, they're all true, aren't they? And we know that. And I think people often, very often do kind of grasp that, and they do start to realize that by doing that, I'm not making anything worse for anyone else. I'm just taking good care of myself. I'm setting boundaries. And in doing that, actually, it gives other people a chance to recognize they too can ask for help, or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
But when it comes to sex, I think that we don't feel quite so brave about communicating and asking for what we want.
Because it's the one thing that we do
that nobody talks about
before we even talk about it, right? So if I invited you round to my house, Janie, and wanted to make you a cup of tea, I wouldn't just give you the cup of tea that I'd made for myself. I'd actually ask you, A, do you want to have a cup of tea? And B, how do you take your tea?
Yeah.
We don't do
Good
that.
Good point. No, you're dead right.
With sex, we just launch into having it, not really actually checking in whether the other person wants to have it properly. Yeah. And we don't have a conversation about how we want to have it. We just do it, and we flounder and hopefully find a way to sort of meet in the middle and make sense of it. Or more often than not, we don't, and we sort of just make do, and it all becomes very messy. So you're absolutely right. It's basic communication, and it needs to start from the beginning. Yeah. But it also has to be a part of the conversation we have around sobriety.
Yeah. So when people work with you, then do you find that you're able to help them towards a place where they do ask, how do you take your tea first?
Well,
or have you changed how you take your tea?
Yeah, maybe you'd like coffee. Maybe
exactly.
Never
maybe you've changed.
Yeah. Yes, because everybody who comes through my door, whether they're expecting to or not, is asked, how have these problems affected your sex life?
Yeah.
And right from the start, it becomes part of the conversation. And I can promise you that nobody has ever refused to answer that question, because they've turned around and told me it's none of my business. And actually, everybody is relieved to be able to talk about it. It's not something that they're necessarily going to volunteer. You have to ask it. You have to give them permission. And once you've given them permission, they will tell you. And then you get led by them. So I make it part of the conversation, very straightforward. I'm not using fancy words. I'm not using medical words. I will use the right anatomical words, but I will make it very simple. How has this affected your sex life? Whether it's all the relationship troubles, or whether it's the drinking or the cocaine or the anything, what's going on with that? It's never the first thing I ask, but it's always something I ask, and I ask it from the very beginning.
Absolutely. So I really appreciate you taking the time to share this with us, Anna, and I particularly appreciate what you said about the fact that we we have to kind of we're almost reinventing ourselves effectively, and then we need to check in with what that new version of ourselves is.
Yeah.
Within the sex or the relationships, whether that's romantic relationships, any relationships, actually.
Any relationship. Yeah.
I guess that's, it just come back to that communication part, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Just give us your website, Anna, where people can find more information about your work.
They can come and find me at kingsleycounselling.com, or I'm on Substack now, annakingsley.substack.com.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Fantastic.
Thank you, Anna. So don't forget, all the info will be in the show notes. And if you've got more questions, because when you start thinking about these things, it opens up loads more questions, then drop them over to me. You know where to find me, at Janie Lee Grace on social media, or you can always find me via the Sober Club. If you haven't joined us yet, by the way, have a think about it, because the price is going up in October. It's been the same price for years and years and years. And the price you join at is the price that stays. So if you do want to get in first, if you've been thinking about joining us, get in now before the price goes up. It's incredibly good value. Of course, I would say that, wouldn't I? But it really is, because there's just a huge amount of well-being content. There's regular meetups. There's an amazing supportive community. There's an online course, Get the Buzz Without the Booze, and on and on and on. So it really is worth it. It'd be lovely to have you part of the Sober Club, whether you are, day one sober curious, or maybe you've been sober for years. It's all about what are you up leveling next in your life. So do check out the Sober Club. Just a reminder, the Sober Club is 5 years old in September. So we are teaming up with Club Clarity for an event in London. And it's Wednesday, the 18th of September in the evening. And it's not expensive. It would be amazing to see you there. It will be a big party, just loads of fun. If you don't really do party stuff, with DJs, then just come for the first bit. But, if you want, you can rock all night. It's going to be a fantastic event. So that's Wednesday, 18th of September at collaborating with Club Clarity in central London in Wardour Street. If you go to thesoberclub.com, click on events, you can buy tickets there. When you go to the Eventbrite link, Club Clarity have probably got more than one event there, so make sure that you book onto Wednesday, 18th of September for the Sober Club collaboration. It'd be fantastic to see you there. Also, while you're looking at events, you can book onto my book tour. See if you can come and see me at one of those events. Please book in advance. Just be great to see you. And also under events, just in case you are have been sober for a while and you're thinking of how you might inspire others, how you might support others, then I've got a free webinar the night before the event, actually, Tuesday, 17th of September, a free webinar, What Does It Mean to Be a Sober Coach, where we'll share some insights. It's absolutely not a salesy thing at all. We'll share some insights into supporting others and really finding your feet in your own sobriety and how you can perhaps inspire other people. My next training course is in January, so just drop me a message if that is of interest. Just a reminder, and I know I sort of say this a lot recently, there's been quite a few people in the Sober Club community who have been doing well, and then they do that, tripping up thing, and the kinds of things that people say, they're often very similar, and they absolutely resonate with me, because I remember going through this so many times before I finally saw the goddamn light and stopped drinking. The kind of things they say are, I had a super busy day, or I was out with my young kids, I went to one of those places where they've got loads of inflatables. God, I remember those. Nightmare. And exhausting, totally threw myself into it. And at the end of it, I've had a hell of a day. I deserve a drink. It's those kinds of things, or someone who's had an unbelievably tricky time for whatever reason. And then you get that voice that just says, I deserve a drink, because our unconscious mind goes quickly to the thing that it's always done to help us feel better, in inverted commas, or find that quick dopamine hit. And it really has to be about noticing those thoughts and challenging them and asking, well, is that true? What is it that I'm really looking for? And we know that what we're looking for is not toxic liquid. Of course it isn't. We're looking to feel better. We're looking to feel a bit more peaceful, or a bit more grown up, or a bit more, I don't know, confident or relaxed, or whatever the hell it is. Step away from the noise for a bit. Whatever the feeling is, the emotion is that we want. And then we have to be realistic and ask ourselves, well, look, honestly, truthfully, is alcohol going to give me that? Well, no, it isn't. Alcohol doesn't actually deliver anything that it promises. It has zero benefits. It's a depressant. It's not going to cheer you up. I mean, I suppose it might take the edge off things, knock you out for a bit. But, you know, so would kind of cracking your head over, you know, head with a hammer. But you ain't going to do that either, right? So how about just kind of reminding yourself, it isn't the answer. I know my unconscious mind thinks it is, because it's what it's always done, and it's what everyone else does, by the way, but that's not a good enough reason either. Let's be ahead of the curve. Let's go and do something else that enables us to be distracted for a bit, or surf the urge, as the expression goes. Let's do something healthy for a bit. Let's just change the state we're in. And you know, when you get good at that, when you get good at noticing your thoughts, at reframing it all, in time, you know, those triggers come by less. In time, you're able to rationalize it. You're able to get through it. You're able to talk back to your wine witch. If you haven't seen my TEDx talk, then please watch it. Sobriety Rocks, Who Knew? I give you a nice example of how you can talk back to the wine witch. So thanks so much for being part of the podcast. I'm not sure if I say thank you enough to all of you as listeners who support this work, whether you're a Sober Club member, or if you want to go to buymeacoffee.com/Genuinely Grace. You can buy me a coffee, or you can buy me a real coffee, particularly if you come along to one of our bookshop events. I'm really hoping that I'm going to get to some of the towns or whatever early, and let's have a coffee before the actual bookshop event. So anyways, looking forward to meeting some of you. Always reach out if you're doing this hard thing. Always tell somebody, preferably someone who's been there, done it, got the t-shirt, someone who has an understanding of what it feels like to be sort of annoyed with yourself, because yet again that voice is coming back. We need cheerleaders. That's what we do in the Sober Club. We become cheerleaders for each other. So for your early days, sending you a really big hug and lots of strength and lots of confidence and lots of positivity, because you can absolutely do this, and it is the best thing you will ever do. See you next week. Thank you for listening to the Alcohol Free Life podcast, brought to you by the Sober Club. Please rate and review, and if you want support, accountability and inspiration, and you want to live your best life without the booze, check out thesoberclub.com.